Okay, so headlines are coming out now that the Supreme Court has blocked the lower court's emergency order to force the Bone Spurs Administration to release full SNAP benefit funds for November. Some people, some influencers are taking this as the Supreme Court is on the side of Bone Spurs to try and starve the American people. That's not exactly what's going on. And this is a challenge for the American people right now to think critically, to think strategically, to act for the future, and not solely based on heightened emotions of the present. Let me explain. The government has been shut down for the longest in history, at 38 days and counting. Back in the middle of October, the Bone Spurs Administration started saying that SNAP benefits in November were not going to be funded. The Republicans in Congress began using that as a way to try to get Democrats to cave and sign a continuing resolution that would not continue subsidies for the ACA, the Affordable Care Act, which would throw tens of millions of people off of healthcare, making it unaffordable for most households, resulting in an estimated 51,000 unalivings per year that would be completely preventable if that were to happen. The Department of Agriculture was sued by Democratic leaders in 25 different states. And a judge in Rhode Island ruled that the Bone Spurs Administration had to fund the full benefits of SNAP. Now, I've seen estimations of $4.6 all the way to $5.5 billion in a contingency plan that is specifically used to fund SNAP benefits if something like this were to happen. And the Bone Spurs Administration, after first saying that they were not going to use those contingency funds in order to fund the SNAP benefits, agreed to use those funds when ordered by the court, because the judge in Rhode Island said that they needed to fund at least partially the benefits for November. Now, sometime after that ruling, there was an emergency ruling that said that they needed to fund the full benefits of SNAP for November. And the judge gave leeway for not only the Bone Spurs Administration to use the contingency funds that they have, but they could also pull funds from other places in the government where funds were available to make up the other half of those funds. The Bone Spurs Administration doesn't want to do that. So they went to the Supreme Court to get an emergency stay on that ruling. Now, one reason why they went to the Supreme Court to do that was because the emergency ruling didn't give them any time to go to the appeals court. Now, the Bone Spurs Administration had agreed to pay for about 65% of the SNAP benefits. The emergency ruling rejected that and said that they needed to pay the full amount. Now, when they went to the Supreme Court, they said that they shouldn't be allowed to pay more than what is in the contingency funds, even though the judge gave permission for them to pull funds from other areas. Now, this is the same administration who has zero problems pulling funds and finding money for other things that they want to do. Bone Spurs has gone on golfing trips 70 days out of 293 days of his administration. That is 23.9% of his administration has been spent on a golf course to the tune of $98 million of taxpayer funds. $75 billion of taxpayer funds was allotted in the Bone Spurs billionaire bill to fund the frozen people for the next 4 years. $1.5 billion of taxpayer funds have been put toward that gifted plane to Bone Spurs himself from Qatar. $200 million of taxpayer funds have been used for the puppy Grim Reaper in Homeland Security's 2 new jets. And $230 million is set to be given to Bone Spurs personally from the DOJ. So it's not like they can't find the money to do what they need to do when they want to find the money to do what they need to do. But Mike Grinder Johnson, who is also trying to protect the perpetrators in the E-Man files by not swearing in the 218th vote in Adelita Guajalva, is refusing to bring the House back into session so that they can vote on these standalone bills to fund SNAP benefits and our military, which in a few days will also not be paid, unless they plan to do what they did last month. And Bone Spurs is talking about trying to hoard said contingency money just in case they need it in the future, like right now isn't an emergency. But I digress. The order from the Supreme Court to stay that emergency decision to force the Bone Spurs Administration to release the full amount of the SNAP benefits for November, that was Ketanji Brown Jackson. She handles the emergency decisions for that district up there. And she halted that decision until the appeals court gets a chance to rule on whether or not the Bone Spurs Administration should be forced to pay that full amount. Now, there is a reason why she did that, and her ruling lasts 48 hours after the appeals court makes their decision, so that the Bone Spurs Administration can bring it back to the Supreme Court. Now, the reason why she did that is because this is unprecedented times, and she does not want to set a precedent that will create a situation where the Bone Spurs Administration gets their judges to issue emergency rulings that are now not contestable, that are now set in stone and must be followed without going through the appeals process. Ketanji Brown Jackson is not ruling with her feelings. She is ruling with her head. She is ruling with logic. Because if she were to let that stand, let it stand that the Bone Spurs Administration must issue those funds immediately because of the emergency ruling without a chance to appeal in the appeals court, then the Bone Spurs Administration would use those same exact tactics for things that would hurt Americans even more in the future. Now, she did say that the Bone Spurs Administration can go ahead and release the partial funds that they had already agreed to release. But what she ruled on was them not being forced to release the full amount of funds without that going to the appeals process. So as it stands, they will release partial funds. And many states have already come out with their own contingencies to also help the people. It is also on us to make sure that we are doing what we can to supply the food banks and other food assistance programs to make sure that people have food this month. But Ketanji Brown Jackson knows that we cannot set the precedent of forcing actions through emergency rulings without it going through an appeals process. If we do that, even for the best intentions, it could come back to bite us in the end. So I really wish that the people, the influencers, and the media who is talking about this and reporting on this would report why this is actually happening the way that it is. Because there is a reason. And this is the time where we cannot start making mistakes that are going to hurt us in the future because we just want to fix a problem that is going on today. We have to think about not only this month, but next month and the time after that. We have 1 year until the midterms of 2026. We have to make it to 2026 November. In order to do that, we must play smartly. We cannot make irrational decisions based on fear, anger, hatred, and panic. We have to think. And I appreciate that we have a judge like Ketanji Brown Jackson that is standing on business, not only for the present, but for the future.